bank and like blocked in the ATM machines or anything. Nothing, because the police will come if we do that. Now let's go over a couple things. Next week we have Jim, I'm going to butcher his last name, Felgenhauser for the Sturgeon Club. He's going to do one on sturgeon fishing. And then on the 15th we're going to have Steve Vandemark doing open water trolling, Saginaw Bay, Harbor Beach area. Then the 22nd we'll have John Dewey for whipping, St. Clair River. That's always a popular one. And then the 28th and 29th we'll have our open house, and we'll have all kinds of reps here this year. We'll have Shimano, Okuma, Offshore, Normark, Rapella, Silver Streak, Dreamweaver. We got all kinds of guys here this year, so it should be a real good one. Couple more dates. The Blue Water Sport Fishing Association on April 11th is going to be doing a boat check. You get your safety stickers. We're trying to make it so we're not harassed as much coming out of the Black River with them doing the safety checks. They've told me if we have a sticker, they won't bug us. So if they do bug us and we do have stickers, then I have some stuff to go back at them on. But you have to do your part and get the sticker. Good one, Ramzik. And that will be at Central Middle School in the great big parking lot on Saturday, April 11th from 10 in the morning till 2. And the auxiliary will be there. There is a whole list of stuff you should go online and do a check on. They don't just give you the sticker, so you got to make sure you have all your stuff. April 18th will be the Spring Fling. We've moved that up to Lexington. There is a website up and going for that now. It's Lake Huron Spring Fling. You can print off the registration form right there, fill it out, bring it in to me. Also, there's an address you can mail stuff to. And then April 25th, you have the Salmon Springs, which is on Saturday the 25th. And if you guys have looked at any of the satellite shots, we'll be lucky to do any of this. We've got a lot of ice out there. Let's hope for a heavy west wind like we did last year. It is what it is, though. It's Michigan. This week we have Dan Fenner on spring salmon fishing. Dan's a good friend of a lot of these people in here. I've fished with him many years. Really a great shallow water and deep water fisherman. So with that, go ahead, Dan.
Hey guys, like I said, I know a whole lot of you guys here, so I know some of these things I'm going to be telling you everything you guys already know. But just show of hands, how many people have fished spring salmon, or who hasn't? That's a bit better. So I just so I know what audience I'm kind of talking to. Okay. All right. Like I say, my name is Dan Fenner. I've been doing this since 1986, I guess. First time spring fishing, I actually took a 12-foot aluminum boat and drug it across the beach at Fisher Road Creek, and had a little 8-horse on that little 12-footer, and we have 2 bass rods trolling crocodile spoons. First time that king just about ripped that rod out of my hand, I was hooked. That was all I needed, So so from then on, I've been fished everything, everywhere in the Great Lakes. I've done a lot of I've done the whole tournament circuit quite a bit in the past, and done real well tournament wise as well. But as the time goes on, I just like to fish, and I just fish. I love to fish. So spring salmon fishing. I mean that's kind of where all of us start. We're all chopping at the bit just to get on the water. Get our lines in the water. So as far as when to start, okay. I've been out today, March 1st. I've been out trolling and fishing as early as today in the river, and even in the lake when it's in the years that we haven't had any ice, and they never caught anything. The earliest I've ever caught any salmon trolling is March 18th. Okay, that's the soonest I've gotten. And this year, it looks like if we can get out there April 18th, I think we'll be getting good. But different things to look for like, you know, the time and, you know, first off, what fish are we targeting? Okay, we're basically going after all of the salmon species. You know, king salmon, that's our #1 target. You know, those are the big fighters, those are the big fish. This is what, you know, everyone probably, you know, likes to catch. But there's also coho, there's lake trout, there's steelhead, there's browns, and you also catch a mixed bag. You know, you catch walleye out there as well. You catch smallmouth as well. So, you know, spring fishing is a total mixed bag fishery of what you can catch out there. So, things that I look for, you know, more than anything else in the springtime to get started is water count. Okay, when does it happen? When does this start? Okay, I've been watching a long time, and I've been taking a lot of notes on this. And for me, when that water temp hits so 38, 39 degrees, okay, 39-degree water is the densest, is what it's. Water weighs the most at 39 degrees, okay? Which means once that water hits 39 degrees, what we start to see is the water falls in the water column. And I believe that those fish feel that, and they know. They can feel that the initial turnover of the lake in the spring. And as that water flows, that's what the fish come up. Like I say, I've been keeping numbers a long time, and you know, a lot of people say it's the amount of light, and I know that has a lot to do with it too. But that 39-degree water for me is the trigger. When it hits there, it's game on. Okay, and that's kind of what I look for. I look for that whether I'm fishing right off, or you know, that's the minimum target water I want to be in. Okay, so. So, you know, what do we look for? Okay, first thing we look for is the biggest thing that we can do is we look for water clarity. We look for water temperature. Okay, clarity of water. Too clear is bad. It's really bad. So we always look for we try to find some type of stain. I'll fish muddy water over clear water almost any time. Perfect water would be your cannonball disappearing in about 4 to 5 foot. You know, you get 4 or 5 foot down. If your cannonball starts to disappear, you can't see it below your downrigger anymore. That's pretty good water. I mean, that's the kind of the stain that you're kind of looking for. That nice greenish milky color. Again, you can catch them in a lot dirtier water. You can catch them in a lot clearer water. But that's the, you know, kind of the clarity that I'm looking for. You know, when I'm trying to fish. So. Other things that you look for is I try to look for bait on the graph, but I don't worry too much about that. If you take a look at a map, if you guys don't have a GPS that shows you creek mouths and things on your map, if you can just take some time and mark where those creek mouths are, that were in some, you know, GPS coordinates. That really helps you out a lot in the springtime, because those outflows, you got two things going on there. You got, you know, smelt they head up the lake and they run up into these smaller streams to spawn. They don't do it nearly like they used to, but I know they still go up in like County Line Creek, and then even further up in Falls Creek. They still get some smelt running up there too by Harbor Beach. So that's the main reason that the fish are there. The fish are there to feed. Okay, they've been sitting on the bottom of the lake all winter long, and they're coming up there, you know, and they got the feed bag on. So I look for those types of areas. Anytime I'm fishing, I mean, you know, most of us are weekend warriors, right? I mean, we're always looking at you know, what's going on for the weekend, If I can tell you guys, anything that has helped me out over the years is to 3 or 4 days before you go fishing, watch the weather, watch the wind, watch what the wind's doing, okay? Because that tells you where to fish. If you got south winds, there's, you know, points and jetties that stick out all the way up, you know, all the to Harbor Beach and that. I always try to position myself on the south sides of those points, because the warmer water will push up against those areas. And if you get a south wind for a few days, some of those areas, some of the you know, you get up there around White Rock, and you get up there around Delaware Park, and there's there's certain other areas that have some really long points that have some pretty good cove areas. And you'll see, and that's also true at all of those harbor mouths. Okay, the south sides of those harbors are always really good after a few days of a south wind. It holds that, it kind of pins that warm water up against those shorelines. You know, the Applegate Road, all that stuff. Those are really good areas. So target points. If you can't find the point, or if you don't know the points, look for the creek mouths. And from water depth. Okay, you can catch them right off the beach. I mean, there's typically a sandbar that runs the whole length of the river or the lake. I try to get early on. 5-6 foot of water is not too shallow for those fish. Those fish, especially early in the morning, those fish are running that shoreline real heavy early in the morning. 6 foot to 12 foot. That's actually my preferred range the first 3 or 4 times I go out. When those fish first come in, I don't like to get 10 to 20. I don't even like to be that far out. I'm a shore hugger. Having said that, I better clarify this. From Lexington south, okay, you can hug the shore. Lexington north, the shoreline is way too rocky. Okay, you're gonna wanna bump out a little bit until you know the area. All right, and I've got props that I can show you what happens when you're getting into an area that you don't know. Okay, so that's note number 1 to take down. Lexington south, you're okay, and 6 to 12 foot of water, no problem. You get north of Lexington, you're going to want to bump out until you know the area. I still run a lot of really shallow water, but whether if you have GPS, it shows the good shoreline and shows you your depth breaks. Those are very accurate, so you can run on those pretty good. If not, all I would say is just live on your graph, okay, and just watch your shoreline. North, especially you get up north of Sanilac, be real careful when you get into water less than 10 to 12 feet, because it'll go from 10 feet to 3 feet like that. Okay. Trolling is the main thing.
Is that because of the water's warmer?
Color too. Color, I mean, if you get a temperature or a color break, I mean, as the waves come in, we're typically a little bit dirtier in the shoreline as we are out away from the shore. And temperature and the bait. I say it's smelt. There's still a decent run of smelt. It's actually been getting a little bit better the last couple of years. But most of these fish they're on a lot of shiners still. Okay, the bait in Lake Huron has changed dramatically. We're on a lot of shiners. That's why some of our bait selections have changed over the past, and I'll get into that a little bit later as well. So, and if anybody has any questions, just raise your hand, spit them out. All right, I get more. I want you guys to get as much out of it as you can. So if I can answer any questions specifically, that's I think that's a better way to go. So like I say, I tend to target, when I first go out, that 6 to 16, say, that 10 foot range. As we troll, the other rule is, I can say, is never troll in a straight line. Okay, always vary, always zigzag in and out. Does a couple different things. It slows down your presentation on one side of the boat, speeds up your presentation on the other side of the boat. So, too many people I see, I'm catching fish and they go right by me and watch, and they just go out of sight, and I'm like, where'd you go? And in the meantime, I've turned around 5 times and did a bunch of figure eights, and so rule number 2 is when you hit fish, never leave those fish. I try to dial, if I hit a pocket of fish, I'll hit a couple marks on my GPS, maybe even a quarter to maybe a couple football field lengths. If that's where I'm hitting fish, I immediately turn the boat back around and get on those fish, and I try to stay on those fish. I'll run a north-south pattern first, and try to, and if I can't fish, if I don't get any fish within maybe 10 minutes of each side of the last hit, I go the opposite way, in and out, east and west, from the shoreline. And that really helps you to dial, what it does is as you hit those marks where you kind of get your fish, it gives you a pattern, and it gives you a area to set up for the day. You'll find out too that after you've been doing it for a few years, there's 9 times out of 10 there's a reason that those fish are there. Okay, and so when you hit those pockets, not only are those pockets important for that day, but they're important for the next year, because there'll be a trough, there'll be a dip, there's always something that seems to congregate those fish in certain areas. And I know a lot of you guys know, you've got certain waypoints that you never erase, no matter if your life depends on it. And then there's other ones that are that was a fluke. But there's and all of us have key spots up the shoreline where we know just seem to hold fish more than others. So that's a couple things that I can tell you about as we're trolling. I'm not going to talk about. I can already see I'm getting into this, kind of getting into the weeds here a little bit. So I'm just going to talk about the lake. Okay, I'm not going to get into river fishing. That's a whole different animal. I mean, we can do one just on river fishing, trolling for salmon too. But we'll stick to the lake right now. So, any questions? Okay, we're going to tackle. Okay. Typical salmon gear is this 15 to 20 pound test. Very, very robust gear for the most part. I like to use semi-stiff rods for fishing. I've done a lot of changes into the years, and I've actually started scaling down the size of my rods. I pretty much run 7-foot rods for all my spring salmon fishing now. And that's probably because I'm in a smaller boat now as opposed to a larger boat too. I've got a 19-foot Starcraft right now, and it's really easy to manipulate these smaller boats. To manipulate these smaller rods on the smaller boats, and to store them, put them away. Those 10-foot rods are hard to find a place for them a lot of times. So, who's run planer boards here in the past? I'm going. So inlines and okay. All right. I'm going to planer boards will catch 80% of your fish in the springtime. Okay. So because they catch 80% of your fish in the springtime, I will run planer boards over every other presentation in the boat, as long as I've got people in the boat to run. Okay. So if I got, I can run 5 planer boards off each side of my boat. I like 4. So, I believe in, your most productive rods are what you should be running. So, that's the other good thing about springtime fishing is you don't need a lot of equipment. You don't need downriggers, and you don't need even the dipsy rods or anything. And these are a little bit higher end rods. I mean, like I said, I did it at first with a bass rod just hanging onto it in my hand. So I mean, you can catch fish anyway. So there's a lot of different types of planer boards out there. There's the walleye boards, there's the offshore boards, and they're all good. They all work. I don't particularly have any preference one over the other. But I do kind of run all the same type. When I'm out, at least on one side, and then the same type on the other side. Reason is as these boats as they track in the water, okay, they certain boards will run further forward than the other boards, and by using the same type of board, you get a more uniform presentation. And not only does it look good, I like the way it looks in the water, but it's a lot easier to tell if you snag some seaweed or you have a small fish on the line. I mean, if you get a big fish, it's going to pull back, and right away. But what you see is a lot of times is one of your boards will be kind of just dragging back a little bit, and there could be a smaller fish, a coho or a walleye or something on that. And so if you're using mismatched boards, you're not as quick to pick up on those types of details. So, one other trick that I can tell you about these boards is on the walleye boards, which is what I use, is they come with this plastic clip. And this clip goes in the back. Okay, so how we set these up is you take the board and I'm on the wrong side. It's going the wrong way. Okay. First thing you do is you put your line in and clips. And it clips on your line like this. Okay. So here is your lure is on the back here, and then it just basically pulls off to the side, and it planes off to the side. So the more line you let out, the further away from the boat it's going to go. Okay. So when a fish hits, there's a couple different ways that you can set these boards up. You can set the boards up to where when a fish hits, the tension of the fish will release this, and this will either slide down to the fish. You can get it to usually you would put some type of bead or a swivel so it stops before it hits the fish. You don't want that lure hitting the fish, because that'll knock the fish off, or the board to hit the fish. It'll knock the fish off 9 times out of 10. So I typically set my boards tighter so they don't come off. So you reel the line in with the fish or with the board without it releasing, and then I manually take the board off and then have the person fight the fish behind me. Okay. Getting back to these boards here, this plastic clip that comes with these boards are junk. Okay. So a real quick tip here: go to Menards and get. This is just a brass rod, okay? And I replaced all my boards with this brass rod. On the back side, it's spring loaded on the inside there, okay? So what you have to do is you have to put a groove in the board, or in that pin. And so what you do is you just take a drill, okay? Just take a drill and measure this distance of the pin that you took out of your board, and then you put this part into a drill, and then just take a little hacksaw. Just take that hacksaw and just put it right against the drill. Turn the drill on for a little bit, and that'll cut that groove. That'll cut a groove right into that rod. So then when you take the same parts that came with this and hook it in the same way, and it's easy. I pulled my hair out of my head trying to figure out how I was going to keep that thing from sliding on a rod, and I can't take credit for that. Someone else on the website showed me that. I was like, oh, that was easy. So yeah, get yourself a $2 piece of brass rod, and and replace all those. They'll last forever like that. The other good thing about this is there's multiple ways that you can set these things up too, and I can also take this if I have problems with my clips sliding. These wear out after a while, and so they have your line. Sometimes the clip will have a tendency to slide down. By using this type of clip, you can put it on, but all you got to do is just give it a couple spins like that, and then when you clip it on, it doesn't slide anymore. So you don't need a lot of tension, and you don't have the problem of your board sliding down your line. And because this is brass, it doesn't hurt it won't hurt your line, and it won't hurt the clip. If you spin that with the plastic one, it'll burn right through that plastic, and you won't be able to pull it off. But like that, it still pulls off just as easy, and you can release your line. So that's just a little side trick there that you can do if you're playing boards. Makes them last longer, and it actually helps. It'll make your pads last a lot longer too. That holds the line to the board itself, because if it's not sliding, it's not going to make that groove and burn your pad out. So they like trout on there. So, any questions? Okay,
How
so
far behind that board are you gonna run your baits?
I run them. It depends on how dirty it is. Clarity of water has a big effect on that. It depends on the depth and the type of bait. In the springtime, in shallow water, these are. I can just you guys just. These are. I just pulled out just some baits. Okay, you can just hand those around. These are just typical. I mean, I run every one of these baits. I mean, I've got lots of baits, but those are just some of the types of lures that I have good luck with in the spring. But, I've got some of the longer minnow baits, whether the bombers and Impalas, joiners work really good. And I use large baits, use small baits, a little bit of everything. So. Distance, I typically start off around 75 to 100 back. Okay, so that's would be from the planer board to the back to where the line starts. Typically, I run about 100 back, 100 foot back. Like you say, the water can dictate that a lot, and the type of bait you have. If you have a larger lip lure that's going to dive deeper, you don't need to go 100 back because you'll be into the bottom and you'll be snagging up and having other problems with it. So, it varies anywhere from 50 to 150. Based off of the conditions. What I'll typically do is I'll set up. You've got your two sides of your boat set up. I'll set up. One side at maybe 75 to 100 back. The other side of the boat, I'll send it further back. I'll maybe go 150, even 200 if things are slow. The other thing that kind of will dictate that is as you're trolling, once you get on the water, is if you mark fish. Okay, if you mark fish in the springtime. I hear people saying this on the radios all the time. I'm marking them. I'm marking things that I can't get a lot of takers. I can tell you one thing right now, 95% of those fish that you're marking are either carp or suckers. I mean, suckers are everywhere in that shallow water. So don't get too hung up on marking fish. We've sat on the front of the boat for hours just watching in clear water, and we're marking fish, and it's like carp, 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 carp. So like I say, don't get too hung up in the springtime. We don't mark a lot of what I would say salmon, unless the water is very dirty. And if the water is real dirty, you can bring everything in tight. In dirtier water, man, you can catch you can catch them that far behind the cannonball. You can as soon as you put your sliders, 3 foot down with sliders, you can catch fish. So. Every rule that I tell you, it's only a suggestion. So if I've only got a couple guys on the boat or 3 guys on the boat, I'll run boards, 90% of the time. Okay. If it's really rough, or I got extra people on the boat, then I'll use downriggers and deep sea divers and slide divers. How many people have used slide divers here? Okay, not too many. Okay, a slide diver is it's a deep sea setup. Okay, that you can adjust the lead behind the boat, behind the diver itself. This is very good in the springtime. It's a very successful presentation. What you do is, the thing is with the slide diver is always on the rod. So that's can be a drawback for some people that are storing rods. So the best thing I can say is, Joel's got them, or M&R Surplus. Just get these little bungees and just wrap them around, and they hold the diver in place, and it doesn't move. and then you can stick it in your rod holders, and you can run, and they don't go anywhere, they don't bounce, they don't affect anything else. So get yourself, if you're gonna run slide divers, get yourself a couple of these little 30-cent bungees. They're worth their weight in gold for these springtime fishing. To set a diver, okay, these things will give you huge headaches in the past, and this is the way I do it to set a slide diver. Okay, the other thing is in the springtime, everyone's got dipsy rods. Most people use dipsy rod divers anyways. Okay, so you've got the rods, and what I do with the slide divers when I'm running slide divers in the springtime, I use this for my standard dipsy diver setup as well. All I do is I take to my braid, my Power Pro or braided line. I tie 75 foot. This is 25-pound mono with a 17-pound fluorocarbon leader. Okay. So what I do is I just reel up 75 feet of 25-pound line on there, and that way the slide diver fits or bites. Because a lot of times these slide divers they don't bite real well on braid because they're slippery. Have a tendency to slide down your rod. So feeding the diver up to your desired length is always a bit of pain for a lot of people. This is the way that I do it. Okay, I've tried a bunch of different ways, and at the end of the day, this works the best.
If you take one of them little rubber bands they give you and you put it right on the line instead of on that piece of metal, it'll hold that Power Pro and stuff.
Does it?
Good, yeah.
Well, I set my mine up a little bit different. I actually put it. If you look at how I set my diver up, that rubber piece. I slide it down and actually put it right on the metal piece itself, on that metal itself.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess if I could put another one inside there, that
Put
may
it right
work
on the Power Pro line
too.
and hold it a little better. It does have the same problem
Yeah.
with it slide. You'll see it on the pole when they're sliding.
Right.
You'll notice
Right.
it
Yeah. I've had that.
That looks like a good way on the boat to deal with it, though. It looks pretty common right there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, everybody's right. So basically what I do is I just take this, and then you got your bait. And I stick that right in the rod holder. Okay. And all I do is I just stick it right in my mouth. And I take it, and then you just pull it.
I know all them moves already.
Yeah, and it's going. Here, take it.
I can do with 12 rods here.
Just pull it like that, okay? And that'll feed it out easy. And so you can feed it out really easy. And to your desired length. For me, I usually run it 50 to 75 back behind the boat. And that's another way that I know that I'm close. Is when I get to the end of the mono, I know it's 75 back, and so I don't have to look at my line counter or anything like that. So I will say that, and then this clips in. I really like the new light bites. Okay, there's both types. There's the standard. And then there's these light bites. The light bites, you just take and you put the line right behind it, and it doesn't take anything. A small fish, anything, it uses leverage to pop that dipsy, and it works really easy for releasing the line with the fish on it. So I hate these things, but I love them because they do work, and they do catch a lot of fish. And the good thing about them is it's a slide diver, so sure you can let it out 75 80 feet behind the boat if you want, but you don't have to. I mean, you can lock it in and you can just run it your lead 5 foot. And because it's springtime, these are only 15 to 20 foot back. You're not getting much stretch out of this line, 15 to 20 foot to the diver, so it's still pretty easy to trip or reel in if you have any problem, or want to change anything. Where I know some of these slide divers in the past, when you set them out, when you got them out 150, 200 back, they're hard to trip with mono because the mono stretch is so bad. That's the other good thing too about using the slide diver in conjunction with the, tied to the braid, because I can still let it out to the braid, and then even if I'm fishing deeper water, I can, be 100 back, and it's still really easy to pop a slide diver with, the braid.
Do those track any easier now?
Pardon?
I haven't had a lot of luck with filters, but do they track good now with the jump through?
Yeah. Oh, you got them jumping out of the water on you?
Yeah, or they just can never figure out where they want to go.
Yeah. Well, like I say, they always tip towards you. Okay, so your weight is always, so when you're whatever way you're facing on the boat, look at your weight, and your weight should always be whichever way the diver's facing. You want the weight to be bottom down. Okay, because in other words, you'll go the wrong way across the boat, and you can if you turn them too far, they can jump out of the water on you. I usually, I don't go over about 3 on standard dipsy, and this goes to 3, 4. You'll be in pretty good shape if you keep the edge of the weight. Don't go any further past than where the line would connect. That's going to keep it basically keep it down where it's going to keep facing down, as opposed to you don't want to tip it. You don't want to tip this planing part where it goes where it has any chance to tip up, because when it tips up, the rest of the planer will send it out of the water. So, yeah. Okay, so that's dipsy.
Hey Dan, you put a little swivel in between that and your leader.
What I do is
slide all the way down.
What I do is I put a bead on it. Okay. See, I basically tie all my leads to the main line. Again, this is the same thing. There's 25 pound, and this is a 17 pound leader. I don't make the leader too long. Well, for 2 reasons. For one is, you make it too long, it's too hard to wrap up, and you don't want it. Like I never make it longer than from here up to about the second tip or so, just because it's easier to take one wrap and hook it up rather than trying to wrap it. You got to find some place for this line to go. So by keeping that line a little bit tighter, it's a lot easier. The other reason I like to use a little bit smaller lead for this is, every time I change the bait, or anytime a fish comes over the side, you check your line for nicks, because most of the fish out there, if you have decent drags, they're not going to break your line. What's going to happen is, you get one fish in, that fish turn a hook or something more, when those kings in the springtime, when they're in 10 feet of water, they've got 3 places to go. They've got the bottom, they've got the surface, or they've got out. So as they're going, they're hitting bottom, they're doing everything, trying to get off your line. And when they do that, every time your bait gets run into the rocks or anything like that, your line is going to get a fray into it. So I like leads that I can pretty much take one length, and then it's really easy for me to check. Okay, lead's good. I put it back out. If not, I've gotten pretty quick at tying knots. I use a lot of blood knots and a lot of uni knots. All I can say is just keep practicing. So I can put a lead on in just a couple minutes now. So every rod that I have has I've got a leader on it. It's just the way that I run them. Okay. One other thing that I did, and this isn't my trick, but it's something actually the guy right there in the back taught me, is, well, the first time that I seen it, is I use very bright line. Okay? Not only do I use bright line, I try to use more than one color. Alright? In the spring when you're trolling, anyone that's done this knows this, and it happens. What happens is you're bringing a lure in, or you catch a fish, and he's hooked into another line. Always hooked into another line. So what do? So it's like, okay, which one did he get into? Okay, this is a real quick way to tell which line that fish got into. Okay, so by using 3 different colors of highly colored line for my main line, what it does is when it comes in the boat, I know exactly, you know, I got the same colors on one side and I got the same colors on the other. And as soon as it comes in, I can tell exactly which rod I got tangled up on. It's like, okay, it's the second rod, third rod, whatever. Just by looking at the color of the, you know, of the tangle. It's just something that saves you a little bit of time. The other thing is when you're running your planer boards, you can see your line all the way out to the board. Okay, so it's really easy to see what's going on. And when you're trolling in the springtime, when the wind comes certain directions, I'm sure a lot of you guys, I know everybody that's run these boards has seen this. So a lot of times one of your inside boards will run over the high line going to your outside board, and that causes a tangle, causes a you know, it screws up, it causes a mess is what it causes. So by using this the high bright line, I can see, I know exactly as soon as it happens. Okay, there's ways to fix that, and one of them is to take your outside board, and I use this on my outside board only. Okay, to get you can adjust these boards to run further or closer to your boat, further up towards the boat. Okay, the more of this planing area that is in the water, the further forward it's going to go. Okay, so what we do is we take our lead, we move our lead all the way, or far enough forward to where the next board in isn't gonna catch it and run over the high line. Okay, so I always take my outside board and I run it further because that gets it to run further up. You have to be careful. You have to do both of them to get it to work right, because it will, with the extra weight, it can dive if you don't keep your rod tip up, or actually keep it low. If you don't keep it low enough when you're bringing in a fish. How to remedy that is take a little heat gun, and you see how I changed that clip, how that clip clips in. By putting that clip like that, now it always pulls the board out, you know, out to the side. Even though it's pulling in lower, it's still the pivot point is such where this is always going to keep it planing towards the surface. If you do it the opposite way, if it's straight and you get the extra weight, what happens is when you're pulling out your line, it'll tip this way. And you don't want it to tip that way, because if it does, as it's trolling, it'll start diving right down to the bottom. So to remedy that, take a heat gun, put a bend in that board, and that'll keep it tilted up, and it'll keep it you know, on the surface for you. So that's just another trick that I use, mainly just on the outside board, because that seems to be the one that always seems to be falling back. Any questions?
Yeah. So you make them boards so they don't pop loose when you catch your fish. Don't you ever have the fish yank it down and start getting nuts, the board flipping under the water? And
not too bad. No, I don't. I mean,
we just did it a couple of times last year, and it seems like that happens every time. The board would go under, and you see everything starts going crazy, and lose the fish and get tangled. But as soon as the board would disappear, everything went.
A lot of that could be about how your board is set up too. Okay. You'll get a lot less of that by having your your inside board slid back further, because it's the weight. Okay, the weight is going to pull the board one way or another. Okay, so if it's not planing out to the side, it may have more of a tendency to pull down if you've got your weight too far forward on the board itself. I know the offshores aren't adjustable. And I don't know.
That's what I was wondering.
Oh, you run these so especially if you're running light lines and light baits. This trick right here also works really good for lead core. Okay, lead core and copper. All right. So if you got these sides of boards and you're running 7 and 10 colors of lead, bending that up and moving this. Moving that weight forward also works, all throughout the year for lead core. Okay. see, where am I at? Trolling speeds, how many, I troll 2 to 3, and that varies day to day. I know a lot of guys troll in that 1.5 to 2 in the spring. I troll at least 2 miles an hour. I usually troll a little bit faster than a lot of people do. But remember, don't troll straight. Okay, by trolling a little bit faster speed and constantly turning in and out. Again, speeding up one side of the boat, slowing down the other side of the boat. And it's a lot of times these fish. If you've seen videos of salmon, hitting lures, these fish follow. They'll follow for sometimes 5, 10, 15. I've even seen where they've been followed for almost like 20 minutes before they actually bite the bait. So by adjusting our speed, a lot of times that's how we can make them trigger. That change is a lot of times is what will make those fish hit. So suddenly speed up or suddenly slow down. It's just changing that cadence of the bait, and a lot of times that's what will influence the bite.
What would it like say just a 2 mile an hour troll, like a 10 degree